Let's move on to our seventh ticker of the day, and that is Boeing, the plane maker, saying it has pushed back deliveries of its ultra-long-range version of the 777X aircraft. This coming as it grapples with the ongoing system issues with the 737 MAX jets. Brian is back with me here at the desk to walk us through that. And Brian, we were talking about this morning, saying it can't be good for Boeing, and yet here we are looking at the Boeing stock
going up
more than 2%.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see why that's the case. I mean, this is categorically bad news for Boeing. They need to push back the development of this, what is supposed to be a wide-body, longer-range plane. Keep in mind that the 777 model is not the same as the 737 MAX planes that were having issues at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, which, by the way, are still grounded. They have not been able to get those 737 MAX planes back into the sky for the time being. But when you think about the fact that Boeing has a catalog of other planes that are currently under development, the 777X, the larger plane being one of them. We're seeing that the MAX might have been, triggering a ripple effect that has caused them to push the development timelines back. The specific issue, as Reuters is reporting with the 777, is specifically engine related. So if we remember that there are certain variants of the same model, so there's a 7779 that's supposed to go into, service in 2020. They now say that will be delayed for a little bit. And then there's also the 7778. That's a 350-seat variant of that plane. That's going to get pushed back to 2022. So for companies like Qantas, for example, that are trying to get planes up into the sky that they can service on their Sydney to London route, this is a big issue because they need those planes by 2022.
Yeah, you can't help but think about the reputational risk for Boeing, right? We've talked so much about the 737 MAX jets, yet, we haven't seen the stock under pressure. You could argue a lot of that's already priced in, which I guess begs the question, well, how much of a catalyst will the 737 jets returning to service eventually be whenever they do?
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing is that it's not just the commercial aircraft that's supporting Boeing, right? I mean, Boeing, we need to remember, is not just a company that creates commercial aircraft that you fly when you go fly domestically or fly internationally. They're also a huge defense contractor, so they made a decent amount of revenue from defense sales of their F-16 jets to certain governments. But I think it's also really fascinating when you consider that this is kind of a duopoly, right? The whole airplane, commercial aviation space. It's Boeing versus Airbus, and Airbus has the A350-1000, which is supposed to compete with the 777X. So to kind of peg it back to the news that's today, you wonder if a company like Qantas, which again is searching for that long-range plane that can service that 21-hour flight from Sydney to London, will they just turn to Airbus instead? They haven't inked a contract with either of them. They're still currently deciding. They haven't really commented on whether or not this delay would affect them. But, this could set off another chain of events for how certain aviation companies end up picking which supplier they want to go to, Airbus or Boeing.
Yeah, but as you've pointed out before, there's such a backlog even for Airbus. So it's not a very quick pivot for those airlines that have to pick. Thanks for that, Brian.